Yourself as a priority, it's hard to take care of other people, especially if they're dependent on you.
I'm enjoying the Tuesday messages from you, Pastor, as well as just the sing-alongs and even the workouts. It got me motivated to get back into the swing of things. I fell off, Pastor. I didn't get that.
I did too. I get it. I fully understand. When I tried to put a suit on, I said, wait a minute, something needs to change. Something has to change.
But trying to get there, huh?
Buttons of fighting, one side fighting against the other. It's been a rough journey.
Old clips of some really wonderful, just master artwork performances from James Durden.
Oh, yes.
And we actually have some right here. Show it, Dr. Dunn. No, just kidding.
Well, you know what? Let's see if somebody can actually say something.
When it comes to professional or elite athletes, there still tends to be a lack of understanding of how mental health issue plays a role and how they are separate from the actual sport.
By the fourth session, I'm sitting up, my shoulders back, I'm looking at him, and this session was only like an hour or so, and like everything had felt like it was unloaded. Like I had tapped into so much that I didn't even realize I was dealing with. There were so many problems that that date back to childhood, that date back to relationship with my real father, that relationships I've had with people that girlfriends, my previous girlfriends, trying to realize that I learned something about myself, that I carry the burdens of everyone around me and I try to fix everyone else's problems. And I'm looked at a certain way, and I try to carry myself, and I try to present this for other people and not doing this for me.
The WNBA is the premier league. And the problem that we get is that we have this big brother, but the NBA has been around for 60 more years than us. When the NBA was 20, they weren't doing as well as we are. Sports aren't a bubble. Sports are a microcosm of the real world. Are women equally paid in the real world?
The statistics are, after the couple years as far as financially, or even if the mental aspect of it, from being away from being that 1.6%, right? And now, you're back into, the real world, as we just said. Why would it take a person out of a situation like being in the NFL where you're competing at the highest level, and then you leave that stage and now you like begging for something? Like something's wrong with that.
I'm going to do my best to get with the people that think like me about changing the narrative economically. Once we change the narrative economically, then we can change all the other four power structures, which is political, social, educational, and spiritual.
I truly believe we want to see our own coaches, our own owners. We're going to have to start our own thing. And it really starts with us, like planting those seeds from the jump, like going to these high schools. Like, have you considered this? Showing them a different reality.
Going to the Olympics was my number one goal in athletics. Like, I would think about all the time when I was little. Every time I went to bed, I was like, Mom, do you think the Chinese are still training? And it was just, as a little girl, to have such a big dream was not very common, but that's something that's really, like, I've held on to it throughout these years. Even when the road got tough, I would sit back and relax, and I was like, you don't want to let down that little girl.
You can definitely go to www.mentalhealthletics.com and actually see us live. We are here to support you.
Be like, look, I'd be like, damn. Nobody like this shit.
Oh my God. Oh
no.
Dr. Dre, how you get a WAP? Keeping it wet. How do you? That's what I just want to know, Dr. Dre. Listen, I'm asking questions that people need to be asking.
Because what I tell all my patients, and what I really tell everybody, mask up. Everybody needs to mask up, regardless of what the CDC says, What the WHO says, we all need to mask up. If we take a look at what we see in China, Singapore, and all these other countries, the bare minimum we can do is mask up.
Yes, Don. Actually, we are seeing an increase in the use of substances in patients who have never had problems with substance use or abuse or dependency.
We love you guys. We want you to stay safe. And, I know me and Don get together and Lord knows what's going to happen. We kept it pretty classy today.
And if you don't teach your kid about race and racism, the world will.
There's no way that this, teenager got mandatory life for drugs, first offense. And a lot of people don't know there's no parole in the federal system. So when we hear life, we understand as federal lawyers that means life without parole automatically.
That's right. That's right. Black Lives Matter.
Any ideas to how to fix the relationship between our communities and the police?
Yeah, stop being a pawn in letting people make you choose sides. And why I say that is, there are people that make money off of division, black and white. There are people whose whole life is division and, hate these people. I'm telling you, no, hate these people. No, hate these people, but support me. And there are people that's their life, like white or black. And I don't play that game. No, I'm not going to say every police officer is the devil or evil. That's just ridiculous.
Every time we get a little closer, every time we crash another ceiling, every time we see another representation of us where there has never been representation of us before, that's where the joy comes from. So I see a lot of non BIPOC people, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, comment, why not all women? Why not all girls? Because not all girls have had an opportunity to see themselves in the highest position of powers in this nation.
Dr. Dawn is a world-renowned pediatric and adult psychiatrist. She has her own practice in Houston, and as you will soon find out, she is full of solutions and helps you deal with the problems. So she's a winner.
All right, like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Season 4 premiere of Live with Dr. Dawn. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn Camila Brown. I'm double board certified in child, adolescent, and adult and sports psychiatry. I'm a two-time nationally best-selling author, producer, podcaster, media influencer. I'm the sole practitioner at ADHD Wellness Center in Houston, Texas, as well as the CEO and owner of Mental Health Athletics. And I am here on Season 4. Listen, this has been such an exciting moment because I missed y'all. I have really, truly missed you all. And it's been a year, literally in a couple of days, it would have been a year to the day, that I actually aired my last episode of Season 3. And so I am back and I missed you all. And I just want to say 2 words to you all. Thank you. Because listen, I was so hyped about this pre-production. I did that myself, you all, and I just wanted to make sure. I'm not a producer. I'm no producer, but everything about what I do, I wanted to learn how to do myself, and I just wanted to present it in a way where it had an element of me to it. And I'm just so elated that you all are just joining me. You supported me through the last 3 seasons. Thank you so much. Dr. Dawn, the Live with Dr. Dawn show was actually birthed out of the pandemic. And a group of me and my sisters, you all know who you are, medical logos girls, we wanted to really come to the community and have a direct communication line and for people to be educated, informed, and understand
what this pandemic meant, because we've never been in a situation like this before. And so that's how the Live with Dr. Dawn show was birthed. And I've had everyone from, board certified physicians to nurse practitioners to actors to basketball players and, everyone that actually has been defined by this pandemic, because we are all on one plane when it comes to worldly matters. And so I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining me. I know that some of you are here live and some will actually see this on the actual replay, but thank you again for joining me for another season. So listen, I had to bring someone as my first guest. I had to bring someone who I just love and adore. And we're going to talk a little bit about, how we met, but this show is all about him. So first of all, you already know what I'm going to ask you to do. Go ahead, share this live. Go ahead and just share this. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, let people know that we are here in the virtual space if they want to join us live. I've had 7 of you all students who are interested in psychology and particularly sports psychology. 5 of you are. I know you're going to be here. I know some of you are going to watch this on the replay as well. So I told you, I promised you I would get someone who's an amazing person, someone that I look up to as well, and could be a wonderful mentor to you as well. So go ahead and share this and listen, take notes so that you can also participate in this live as well. All right. So I'm actually going to introduce my guest so he can actually go ahead and just bless us with his knowledge and expertise of his field. So as the first guest of season 4 of Live with Dr. Dawn, I'm honored to be graced with the presence of Dr. Josiah Igono. For the past 20 years, Josiah has been helping athletes create massive mental breakthroughs. He played college football, became a strength and conditioning coach in the NCAA, and he's one of the first Black directors of a psychology department in Major League Baseball for the Texas Rangers, and communicated with athletes on a daily basis, speaking bilingually, English and in Spanish, which also propelled him to consult with some of the biggest names in sports. Josiah is gifted in finding solutions and working with athletes by listening, watching, and taking notes. After completing his own career as an athlete, he knew that he wanted to challenge athletes mentally, train them physically, and encourage them spiritually through mental performance. This journey led him to obtain a doctorate in performance psychology, as he was simultaneously working with some of the world's best athletes and coaches. In his 20 years of athletics, he's taken on some of the most powerful principles in sports and performance psychology and formulated a digestible and heartfelt approach in creating mental breakthroughs for these athletes. His goal now is to help athletes and organizations understand these principles so that they can consciously and intentionally perform at high levels. He also serves his community very well and is often called on by various professional organizations and community groups to discuss his expertise as an innovative performance specialist, speaker, and mental health advocate. He is the president and chief performance strategist for All Things Performance LLC, where he helps high-level performers establish foundations and frameworks for a powerful mindset. Check out his show, All Things Performance, on the Apple Podcast and YouTube platforms, and I'll put that link for you right here very shortly. I want to welcome my friend, my spiritual brother, Mr. Josiah Igono, as the first guest of season 4 of Live with Dr. Dawn. And I want you all to please welcome him to the platform. Thank you so much, Dr. Igono. You're here.
Dr. Dawn, thank you so much for having me. You got me batting leadoff, so I got all the pressure on the world on me right now.
Hey, I had to listen. You're the number 1 batter right now, Josiah. Seriously, let's go. Thank you so much, brother, for joining me today. I really do appreciate you taking time away from your family. I know that this time is very special, on a Sunday, and just gracing the presence today on the platform.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I am honored to be here. You are a game changer You are somebody who inspires me. And, this is, I just pray, my prayer is that somebody is truly inspired by something that we say because of the life that we've lived and the journey that we've traveled. So thank you again for having me on your show this evening.
Oh, it's such a blessing. It's an honor. And hey, come back anytime you want. Okay.
Let's go.
So first of all, yes, let's go. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Thank you. I'm feeling great. Again, I'm batting leadoff, so got a lot of pressure over here, but this is what we train to do. You know what I'm saying? So let's go.
Let's go. I always like to start from the beginning, Josiah. I spoke a little bit about just a piece of your resume
Yeah.
and background, and I want to get more into that a little bit later in the show. But I really want to start from when you were young. Can you tell me about your upbringing, where you come from? What kind of support systems you had, and kind of what led you to want to become a mental performance strategist, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again. So, I was blessed with a very strong mother and father, Moses and Alice Igono. My mom and dad were immigrants to this country in the early 80s from Nigeria. My dad went on to receive his doctorate, his PhD in I believe it was animal physiology. So he was a research scientist for several years. As a veterinarian, my mom, she went on to get her master's in education. So she has been in social services for over 20 years. My mom and dad both love the Lord. They brought us up, in a faith-based Christian household. I have 3 brothers. Those were my first teammates. You know what I'm saying? And so, we grew up I grew up in South Phoenix. I grew up in South Phoenix, and was just blessed to just have a very diverse, culturally rich experience growing up, to middle class parents that fought in tooth and nail for everything that they got in this country, and so I will be forever indebted to them. But yeah, that was where it started. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, that's where it started. Josiah, just looking up the origin of your name means God supports and heals.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it's interesting that our name means something. When our parents name us, that is the intention from the very beginning of, things to come, right? Kind of our place in society, who we are,
Yeah.
is a part of our identification, and, particularly what we can do for other people, is, as part of his mission. So your name in itself means healer,
Yeah.
supporter of people. Did you know that this was something that you were going to do as a young child growing up in Arizona? That you wanted to be a part of someone's healing experience and journey?
That's a great question. I didn't know that, but I will say this though, God knew. And another thing that I will say is that I've always been in situations in my life where I always had to speak the truth when things were going awry, if you will. I've always been in situations where I've had to confront people, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. And it was one of those things where, when I see somebody who is abusing their platform, when I see people who are hurting, when I see something that is not right, I have to speak up. I have to bring truth. I have to bring light, because if I don't, then it messes me up physically, like literally physically, psychologically, it messes me up. And so I have never been afraid of, well, I shouldn't say never be afraid, because it's always uncomfortable, right? When you're dealing with confrontation. But to your question, I didn't know that I was going to be doing this type of work. But looking back, I see how I was being prepared for this, on my way coming through the ranks.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I can relate that to being an empath. And, being an empath and caring about people, and speaking up for people and understanding them, it can be, it's a wonderful work to be able to do that. It's part of who you are, your personality. But on the other hand, it can also be draining, right?
Oh, yeah.
It can be devastating, in losing out on folks and losing out on yourself sometimes. And like, how are you able to refuel, if you will? What is kind of your habit forming ways of refueling?
That's a great question. I think one of the things you said it right, when you're an empath, when you are a speaker, when you are a therapist, a pastor, a teacher, a coach, anytime you have these types of professions, you are constantly in the frame of mind of giving, 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 giving. And I heard something a long time ago at a conference, which always will resonate with me. And the speaker said, he said, when your output is greater than your intake, then your upkeep will be your downfall. And when he said that, I was just like, man, that hit on a whole different level, because so many times we give, and it's fulfilling, right? It feels great. We're making a difference. We're changing lives. We're winning games. We're motivating. We're persuading. But at the end of the day, you need to eat. At the end of the day, you need to rest. At the end of the day, you need to work out. At the end of the day, you need to get into your scriptures. You need to meditate. You need to pray. You need to take a walk. You need to spend time with your wife or your significant other, your children. You need to be pouring into yourself, because if you don't, your upkeep will be your downfall. So for me, I've always enjoyed working out. I've always enjoyed, being competitive. Like, even if you come to my house today, like, I'm a big little kid, you know what I mean? I got foosball tables, ping pong tables, video games, you know what I'm saying? Like that's just part of who I am. And if I don't do those things, then, we have a tendency to just to stress ourselves out.
That's right. That's right. I can't wait to come to your house and play these balls with you. I love it.
And be careful what you ask for, because my kids are pretty good. I'm pretty good. You know what I'm saying? You might mess around and walk out a couple of L's. I'm just saying.
Out there talking stuff already. Look at you. So, I want to talk a little bit about how we met and then kind of transition to how you, became your own athlete in college and things of that nature. So, do you remember how we met, Josiah? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, I do. So I used to when I was a strength and conditioning coach, an NCAA coach back in the day, and I did that on the professional level as well. And the director of sports performance, or performance athletics, which we call at the time at the university I was at, was Chuck Howard. I used to work right underneath Chuck Howard, and Chuck Howard and I, we used to train a bunch of professional athletes that would come through, particularly NFL guys. We had a couple major league guys in there as well. And one of those individuals was one of Georgia's legendary, iconic football players of all time, cult hero, you know what I'm saying? Pops on a tackle. You probably seen it on you know what I'm saying, on YouTube. The man himself, Mr. Rennie Curran. You know what I'm saying? And so Rennie, I connected back with Rennie after a while, and Rennie was like, "Man, Joe, you need to meet Dr. Don." I was like, okay, like, okay, you know what I'm saying? And so Rennie connected the two of us together. I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say it was during the pandemic. And then I started understanding what you did, and then you understood what I did. And it was awesome, because it's like now two worlds, are colliding, and it's impacting more people. So I believe that's how we met, unless you have a different story.
No, that's the story. And, I want to spend right now time to just thank Rennie, because I've met a lot of people through Rennie, a lot of remarkable people through Rennie. And we met at a platform. We were actually speaking on his platform about mental health, mental toughness, mental wellness.
Yes.
And, I have to say congratulations to Rennie and his Bulldogs for beating my Wolverines.
Oh, that's
congratulations, Rennie.
That's right. A little
You got it in. A little salt. A little bit. Just a little. But anybody, if you look up the name Rennie Curran, you will see how he is one of Georgia's Bulldogs. He's on plaques, he's on walls, he was at the game. Rennie is the name for Georgia Bulldogs. So we want to just take a shout out to the Rennie. That was a great intro for Rennie.
Oh yeah. Rennie's doing big things, man. Hey, Rennie, if you hear this, man, hey man, holla at your boy one time, man. You know what I'm saying? He hit me up the other day. So yeah. So no, he's doing great things actually. So it's been really cool to watch. It really has.
It really has. But one of the things that, I have students on here who are interested in connecting in the sports world as far as mental health and wellness and psychology, particularly. And I try to just encourage them to, look at people's podcasts, listen to them, connect with them on different platforms. Because you said it right. I mean, when I heard you speak on platform, I was done. I mean, there were so many things that I thought I knew about mental toughness, because
Yeah.
we're going to talk about what the difference is between having mental toughness and kind of mental illness,
Yeah.
right? Because there is some differences there. Dude, you can write a book on this. I mean, you scholar. I mean, I was just thrown. Like, seriously, I watched that
Mhm.
broadcast. You don't know this, 2 or 3 times, because you dropped so many nuggets in that broadcast, and I just had a greater awareness, and it just allowed me to study a little bit more
Mhm.
on how I can, help athletes that I work with on this part, but also have someone to introduce them to as well,
Yeah.
because you're wow, the key. So can you break it down to us, because I know you were a college athlete, and then, like you said, you were a coach for the NCAA, and then one of the first Black directors of the psychology department for, and I'm going to say the name, Texas Rangers here.
Yeah.
Um, how, before we get to the difference, how were you able to establish that path? I mean, can you tell me what kind of support systems or what you looked into in order to kind of understand what your purpose was for that particular pathway?
Yeah, it's a great question. Now you're talking about the educational and professional path.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so great question. So uh, I'll start off by saying this. My thing is, I have always been obsessed with performance, right? And many people, that term performance is overused, in my opinion. It's overused. We have performance this, performance that, and what I'm a big proponent of is you have to understand definitions. You must start with definitions, because if you don't understand definitions, you cannot understand concepts. And if you can't understand concepts, then we can't talk about philosophy, which is ultimately where we all want to go in terms of, philosophical likenesses and differences. And so when you look at performance, performance is the execution of a specific task or function. How well does this athlete perform? How well does this said athlete execute and function in certain situations? And so I was always obsessed with that. I was always that guy that I was like, man, how do you make it better? How do you get faster? How do you jump higher? How do you how do you attain higher levels of cognition? I was always enthused by that. And as I continued my journey, I was like, man, all right, got my master's, in IO psychology, industrial organizational psychology. And mind you, I didn't get my master's until later, because as soon, like many 22-year-olds, when I was done in college, I was like, yo, let me try to go and play in the league like everybody else, right? I said, as soon as I graduated with that bachelor's, I was like, yo, I'm done with school. I'm done with this thing. But then what started happening was I started looking around the rooms in terms of what I wanted to do. And I was just like, yo, I need to go back to school, because I will not be respected. Certain doors will not be opened. And the rooms didn't look like me. And so I knew that I had to go back to school. And so my father, he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, if you're going to go and get a PhD, you want to make sure that you're going to use it. Make sure that you use that thing. You know what I'm saying? And so I looked at my path and I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to be doing this stuff for the rest of my life. I love this. I love performance. I love this domain. It's almost limitless in its application. What I do applies to elite level athletes, to teachers, to lawyers, to doctors. It applies to everybody. So I said, you know what? If I'm going to get my doctorate in something, it's going to have to be something like my father suggested that you're going to use. And that's what I did. And so when I finished playing college, I tried to pursue professional football afterwards for a little bit, play some little arena football on the East Coast a little bit. It was one of those things where when I was done, I said, you know what? I know I'm going to be working with athletes. I know it is. And my mission statement, Dr. Don, at that moment became that I wanted to challenge athletes mentally. I wanted to train them physically, and I wanted to encourage them spiritually. That was what I wanted to do. And so at the highest level, from the professional athletes, the players that you see on TV and NCAA, to, you know, the individuals who are in prison who you'll never see their face, some of them, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And so, you know, when I started looking at the path, I was like, man, you know, don't want to go back to school. Then it was like, you better mess around and get that master's if you want to command something in the marketplace. And it was just like, you know what, that PhD, you know, I'm going to be doing this stuff anyway. Let's go ahead and take care of that. And so I went back and got my PhD, got my butt kicked for 6 years, you know, getting through that whole deal. But it was one of those things that I just followed, that what God was putting in my heart. I followed that diligently, and I don't regret it. And I'm very happy that I continue to stay the course, because, as you know, there were times in my life as well, in my academic journey as well, where I was just like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Yes, yes. Can you tell me what that was for you, Josiah? How, if you can describe it in words, how did you feel led? And how were you able to keep going past the failures, past the challenges, to becoming one of the first directors of a Major League Baseball team that in Texas? Okay. And their psychology department. I mean, there's so many stigmas. I just said in 3 or 4 words there. I'm just gonna keep it real.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, like, can you put it into words because sometimes people ask, how do I know I'm being led to do this? And you know, can we just touch on that, and then we'll get to the psychology part.
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to Dr. Derek Anderson. I want to make sure that if you don't know his name, that you all know his name today. And he doesn't know that I'm doing this, but I'm actually getting chills right now saying his name, because he was, from what I understand, he was the first. And I got a chance to talk to Dr. Anderson a few months ago, and some of the stuff that he shared with me was very powerful, because I saw myself in his story. And he was, for the longest time, I didn't think there was anybody else that was what I was doing. So I started asking questions, and we can talk about him here or and that path more here in a minute. But I want to make sure that I say his name, because when you start talking about Major League Baseball and you start talking about the history, and you start even talking about the recent evolution of sport and performance psychology, Dr. Derek Anderson was the first Black director of a sports psychology department, and many things that we are doing now in the world of sports, in the world of baseball, he was influential in beginning those and starting those. And so if anybody's listening to this that loves baseball or interested in the history of baseball, let me just tell you that Dr. Derek Anderson was the first, and he's doing remarkable work, and he continues to trailblazer and pioneer. So I want to make sure I said that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention his name. Now, when you talk about how I knew I was being led, you know, for those that are listening to this today, especially for young professionals who are trying to figure it out, because guess what? You are not going to have the answers in the beginning. You're not. None of us do. None of us do. Because if we did, we would be, we would have figured it out years ago. And so what I would say is, you have to understand what your passion, what are your passions? What things are you passionate about? I just share with you mine about performance, right? What are you passionate about? What things could you do all day? What things energize you? What things bring you life? What things, are you known for? What things do people come to you for? And in like fashion, what are those areas? What are those things that make you mad, that piss you off, that create tension and anger within your soul when you see them? And many people, now we'll say this, many people, they get it twisted. They think that, anger, no, that's not, we shouldn't be angry. No, let me tell you something. Oftentimes when you look at the areas that make you mad, you inherently have the answers to figure it out. When you say, oh man, I hate human trafficking, I hate abuse of power. If I were to sit here and ask you, so how would you change it? I guarantee you, I guarantee you that you would be able to rattle off solutions just like that because it irks you so. And so when you start to understand those areas that you're passionate about, those areas that that anger you, and you start to look at your dreams, your hopes, your desires. What do you want to see in your life, in the life, and you start to sit down yourself or somebody else who can help walk you through that process, you will start to get this better understanding of what we call purpose. You see, the purpose of something is why it was created. I have this water bottle right here, right? If I had an individual that was standing 10 feet away from me, or Dr. Don, if you were standing 10 feet away from me, I said, hey, let's play catch with this water bottle, right? It'll be funny for the first 2 minutes. Oh, catch. Oh, catch. Oh. But after a while, it would get boring. It would become useless. You know why? Because that's not why this water bottle was created. That's not its purpose. The purpose of this water bottle is to create end nourishment and hydration for the end user. That's why it was created. And once that water is gone, it has, guess what? Fulfilled its purpose.
Amen.
And each one of us has a purpose. And when we are not living in our purpose, it's like the water bottle that gets thrown back and forth. We ask ourselves, what are we doing? Why am I here? Where am I going? What is this? What's the point? But when you're living in your purpose, right, you start to say, this is giving me energy. This is giving me life. I could do this all day. I'm not working a day in my life. So to your question, Dr. Don, when it came to me, I had to understand, what are those things that am I passionate about? What are those things? Right? When I would speak, for me, I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher. And so when I speak, when I teach, I feel fulfilled. One of the greatest joys that I get is when my audience members or people who I'm talking to, when they come back to me and they say, oh, that hit the heart. I needed that. That you made it. That made so much sense. That is part of my purpose. So as you start to understand your purpose and you start to execute those gifts, talents, and abilities that you have all been given, we have all been given them. What happens is you start to get used. When you start to use, it's like a compass. People will start to tell you the path. You'll start to get haters. You'll start to get people who will start to show up to support you for no reason. You'll have people show up for no reason to support you. I can't tell you how many people who I thought hated me, how many people who I thought were haters. But as soon as I was living in my purpose, they were right there supporting me. Anything you need, Joe, I got you. Hey, man, keep doing what you're doing. This is awesome. And that's what happens. But you will never see that until you start your gift.
Josiah, Dr. Josiah, you described that so eloquently. And I just have to recap because whenever I listen to you, whether it's on your podcast show, YouTube, tonight, it just speaks volumes to my spirit. When people are in limbo, when people are not understanding where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be doing, like you just said, you will notice, like my dad said, the windows will start opening. Forget the doors. Yep. I mean, there are more windows to a house than doors, right?
Yep.
The windows will start opening. Your haters will start supporting you. They have no choice but to start supporting you, right? I mean, I cannot imagine how many people I have come across and had no idea who they were. They had no idea who I was. And all of a sudden, we just clicked, connected. And we were connected for a greater purpose outside of ourselves, but collectively we were better. And like you said, that's how you just know you're walking your purpose. Listen, I'm so sorry. I heard a couple of sermons today. You just spoke it to my spirit again. I cannot wait to see this again because that is so meaningful. You have no idea how many people right now feel stuck. They feel stuck. Because it's not happening. What they want and what they desire, what they feel they're led to do, is not happening. So thank you so much for sharing your personal experience and how you felt led to that. Transitioning to how you help athletes, is that where you start? I know you're a great listener. I think I feel that people are innate to listen. You can hone in. My understanding in my professional and personal experience with listening, and why I feel that that's why I do what I do, is that it's innate. I'm just a good listener. Now I love to talk. That's why I say I don't think I could be really a good therapist as I can be a psychiatrist, because I love to talk, I love to educate, but I love to listen as well. And listening is not just by hearing. It's not just by speaking bilingually, but it's
Mhm.
about seeing the nonverbals, the behaviors, right? The expressions, the emotions. How do you connect with players when it comes to that, and in enhancing their performance? What is the connection
In terms of listening, this component.
there?
So that's a great
Or the
question.
psychology of it all? Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to work with professional athletes, if you want to work with AA athletes, I don't get on the blank. You better be a good listener, because they will know these players. I just had a player write me a testimonial a few months ago, World Series champion, and I'm reading his. They just the Braves. He was on the Braves, and I'm reading his testimonial, and my jaw dropped, because I was just like, "Yo, man! Like I had no idea that I was making that impact on him." And what said, well, I'm not going to tell you exactly what he said, but I'm going to give you the spirit of what he said. He was like, "Man, you were paying attention, you were listening, and that made an impact on me. Just being around you, just seeing you watch and listen, and being a listening ear, just by being present." One of us told me, he said, "Josiah, a listening ear has a healing quality. Sometimes all you have to do is just listen." These players, they would compete, they would come in, into the training room or into the food room, or into the weight room, and they would just be pissed. They'd be angry about their performance. And it's easy to come in there and say, "Oh, just, it's going to be okay. You'll get them again next time." No, they don't want to hear that. Sometimes all you got to do is just be present. Just sit there. Sometimes I'll just come in, I'll just sit there. That's it. Just there. And then when they're ready to talk, they're ready to talk. And so anybody listening to this, if you want to make a significant impact on those you serve, develop the skill of listening. We can all talk, but if you can listen well, if you can listen at an elite level, you are going to separate yourself from your competition and from your peers.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I want just to break and just share, see if everyone can listen. If you all are we having any problems with listening, Josiah, I'm gonna put you out of the room for 1 second and bring you back. Want to make sure that you can hear him. He is dropping so many nuggets tonight, and you cannot miss this. You cannot miss this. If there's any questions that you would like to bring his way, please put that in the chat. I want to know that you're here. Josiah, are you able to hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly fine. If you want me to use headphones, I can do that too. I can hear you perfectly though.
Okay. I just want to make sure people can see you as well. There's a little interference on my end to see you, but I want to make sure that you can. Okay. What are you saying, Yolanda? No. What does no mean? I want to make sure that you can hear him. Please let me know. Please let me know. What does that mean? They can't see you. Okay, they can't see you. Josiah, do you mind reconnecting for us? You mind reconnecting?
Yes.
It's important.
Thank you. So should I just leave studio and come back in, or?
Yeah, exactly. Just leave and come right back in for me. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Auntie, for saying that. I appreciate that. We want to make sure, because I told y'all to get ready. I told y'all. And I have to have him back because we got 15 more minutes. We have 15 more minutes and we haven't even gotten started. You haven't even seen the brilliance that he brings. You probably see a little bit, but he is remarkable. He's remarkable. You feel his spirit, you feel his energy. That's when you know people are led to do what they do, when you feel their energy, right? and just the nuggets he's dropping about this. And we're going to connect this to how his brilliance in being a director of psychology for a team. Let's see. All right. We want to make sure. Are you able? We can hear him. They can hear you fine, but your reception is a little fuzzy, Josiah. Your Wi-Fi. Okay.
Okay.
Are you able? Yeah. Let's see here. Are you able to reconnect on your Wi-Fi? Or your?
Yeah, let's hear.
Yeah, I want to make sure. Okay. All right. We have a couple of people. They say. And you can connect on your phone
Testing
too,
microphone
Josiah.
check. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. We just can't see
Okay.
you. And it becomes a
Okay.
little fuzzy. Then you can't. Your voice distorted a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, losing you a little bit. Let me see if I can actually. Well, I don't want to do anything on my part because I don't want to stop the broadcast. Josiah, do you mind reconnecting on your Wi-Fi or your phone?
Yeah, I'll connect.
Okay. See it.
Okay.
Josiah and I, listen, we've already. Okay, no problem. We had this conversation. I actually, okay, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Elnora. We had this conversation. I actually was blessed to be on his platform last week, and sometimes the devil tries to be busy and interfere, and kind of try to intercede into the blessing that people are getting, but we're not going to allow that to happen. That's why I want to stop, because I started noticing on my end. And checking other sources, I saw that it was a little fuzziness too. So thank you, listeners and followers, for sharing that with me. So we're going to just wait for him to get back in. But some of the things that he's already stated, I'm just recapping. I like to take notes during the broadcast and look at the broadcast again. But one of the things that people are feeling stuck in not understanding their purpose is that this is the thing. Purpose is not just about knowing what you want to do as you're young. Your purpose can change throughout the trajectory of your life. And it could be more than one purpose as well. So I don't want anyone out there to feel stuck because they didn't discover their purpose when they were 12 or when they were in college or when they were, in professional school, and all of a sudden their purpose is, purpose comes along with life experiences. And it comes along with tuning in to your maker, in my opinion, tuning in to God Almighty, because he will direct you to what your purpose is and who you need to be connected with at the time you need to connect with them. And I promise you, it will just open all these opportunities, and it will be very clear, without question, what your purpose is. So here we have Josiah. Oh, yes, Josiah. Thank you so much. Yes.
Can you hear me
We
okay?
can see and hear you. Yes, can hear you perfectly. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. Yes. I didn't know if you finished your comment, but I have a few questions for you as well. So if we can talk about psychology and how sports organizations are looking at mental health. Can you tell me, in your opinion, Josiah, why professional athletes, let's start with them, don't trust psychology? In that respective term, what psychology is and what their thoughts are about psychology. Can we start with that question?
So Dr. Don, it kind of broke up there, but you were talking about psychology and how sports organizations, and then I lost you there.
Basically, how athletes view psychology. So when you started working with athletes, and you introduce yourself as a performance strategist, but you are, you have a PhD. What was their response to you being, a strategist, but yet just the psychology that you bring to kind of to their situation, to the organization, to the sport itself?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in terms of the acceptance, I think you and I have talked about this before. In terms of the acceptance with professional athletes, when you start talking about psychology, psychiatry for high-level athletics, it's something that is newer in our space, right? It's easy to talk about nutrition and strength and conditioning and kinesiology, athletic training, but when it comes to the mind is so sacrosanct, it's so holy, it's so it's sacred ground. And for me personally, like, I don't look like a psychologist, I don't look like a psychology person, You know, they knew me as a strength coach. Not only that, but you know, there weren't a lot of people that have my skin color walking around, you know, talking about psychology. You know, there was you know, there was a funny story. I told one person what I did, one of our people, and he started cussing under his breath. He couldn't believe it. He's like, you know, because it's something that was abnormal. You know, it wasn't common. But once people understand who you are, what you do, and they get a chance to watch your life, they get a chance to watch you interact with other people, they get a chance to trust to test your trustworthiness rather. Once they get a chance to do that, then they start coming to you. Then they start trusting you. Then they start telling you their deepest, darkest, you know, but it wasn't until they did all of that, until, you know, they could really open up. And so once that happened, and once people started seeing the results, and once people started seeing what it is that I stood for and how I went about my business, that's when things opened up. But I'm not special. That happens to everybody. Like, if you're going to be in an organization of high performers, they're going to do that to get you.
Right. That's right. So how, when working with athletes or just anyone, right, how do you subjectively and objectively evaluate psychology as it involves their performance? Are there certain standards, measures, questionnaires, conversations that you have with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, many times we are in this day and age, we are accustomed to numbers, right? Whether we love numbers, we love statistics. ESPN has spoiled us, right? We love seeing the ticker on the bottom of the screen. Oh, he's 15 out of 15 for his last, free throw attempts. You know, this person's 5 out of 5 in game-winning field goals over 50 yards. We're spoiled by numbers. And what happens is when you start talking about psychology, the famous businessman Peter Drucker once said, he said, and this is not true for all things, it's true for many things. He said that you cannot manage what you cannot measure. But we know that not to be true in all cases. So when you objectively measure something psychologically, you can, we do so by education, right? You educate people. By virtue of your position, by our position, we're educators. We teach people about certain things, about certain modalities, about certain techniques. When there's heightened levels of trust, that's another way to measure if something's working. When you start seeing your office full of people and people hitting you up at all hours of the day, something that you're doing is working. You know what I'm saying? In our position from a sports psychology standpoint, is one of the most important positions in an organization, because one of the ways that you can tell that a sports psychology or psychiatry department is working is if there is engagement levels with multiple departments, if not all departments. Because that should be one of the fulcrums of which your organization revolves around, right? And so I remember when I was, working with the Rangers, I was working with the pitching coaches and the hitting coaches. I was working with our scouts. I was talking with our front office. I was working with the players themselves. I was working, with their families.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So if you're doing that, if a staff member is saying, hey, I want you to work with my family member, guess what? Something that you're doing is working. And so when you start seeing, how to measure it, there's different questionnaires, different assessment, both normative and iterative measures, whether it's personality, whether it's, things that are talking about confidence, stress, anxiety, perfectionism, you fill in the blank. There's all kinds of measures that we can give an athlete to find out if something is working. And one of the things some of the ways that you find out if there's evidence is positive feedback, right? There's positive feedback. There's a noticeable increase in aptitude and morale within the organization. There's residual effect. Players coming to you months later, weeks later, years later, and telling you, hey, Dr. Don, that stuff that we went through when I was working with you, I use it today in my life today.
Yeah.
And so there are so many different things that we can use to measure if things are working. And I just gave you a few right there.
You did. And I think I want to reiterate what you said. It's not just with the players, multiple departments.
Mm-hmm.
So leads me to my next question. I mean, if the leadership of an organization doesn't understand the importance of psychology, I mean, could either catapult this organization to high standards and care about their players and make sure they have everything they need and, them themselves, or it can actually destroy it. And ultimately, you will see that, right? In a player's performance or disruption in the leadership of the organization. I mean, psychology is important. Is that correct?
No, that's 100% correct. If there is a marked effort to put this department, psychology, sports performance, high performance psychology, whatever people want to call it, at the forefront, and this this seat, if you will, is working in tandem with leadership and decision making, and it's done well, it can have a tremendous impact on an organization for sure.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the MLB was one of the first organizations to welcome mental health and performance and a performance psychologist. Am I right in saying that this is different from a conditioning coach? I mean, we're talking about someone who deals straight with the mind and may, like yourself, Dr. Josiah, may actually include some psychological components to this. I mean, what is the difference between mental toughness and, mental health, if you will, and how that is perceived by sports organizations, in your professional opinion?
Yeah, so I think when you look at the MLB, I believe if you look at all the major sports organizations, all of them to some extent have some type of professional that is working on the mind, whether they're a psychologist, psychiatrist, whether they are an EAP professional, CPMC, or certified mental conditioning professional. I forget what the designation is called specifically, but I think it's CMPC. And that somebody's going to ding me if I'm wrong, but you guys know what I'm talking about. But MLB has it's very extensive. It's more extensive, I think, than many other of the sports organizations because of the levels, and I just feel like it's more common, it's more accepted. I did an interview a few years ago with Pat Doney of NBC, and I said that MLB is going to be at the forefront of this, and I think that they are. In terms of just the rigor and the number and the acceptance. Now, to the second part of your question, as it relates to mental toughness and mental health, as you have alluded to before, and I am the same mind. Anytime you start talking about mental health, when you start talking about the mind, it's always on the spectrum, right? You have extreme one way and extreme the other way. And my job, right, when you look at the spectrum, there are individuals who are doing well, who are joyous, who are free, who are contributing at a high level. They're all-stars. Yet the other end of the spectrum, you have individuals who are dealing with a death in their family. They're dealing with, suicidal ideation. They're dealing with prolonged injury, right? They haven't been able to contribute to their respective teams for weeks, months, some of them years. And in the middle, you have people who are neither here nor there, and that's where they lay on the spectrum. And my job, as I always put forth, is I need to prepare you, the athlete, to improve your position. Regardless of where you fall, my job is to help you prepare to improve your position. And guess what? We can all improve. Now, to your question about mental health, mental toughness, when you look at mental toughness, a very simple definition is this is how somebody responds to adversity and to stressors, irregardless of the situation. And so many of us think that being tough is, it's this, this person got hit in the forearm with a baseball and he's still powering through it, or this person is playing with a sprained ankle and he's still powering through it, she's still powering through it. That must mean that they're mentally tough. No, that's not mental toughness. That's physical toughness.
Right.
Mental toughness looks at how you are responding to these different stressors. And so we look at what we call the 4 C's: commitment. How long are you going to commit to something until the very end? We look at challenge, how you perceive a situation, right? Some of us may look at something as easy, others may look at it as hard or difficult. Control, how well can you mask feelings of disgust, anger, shame, guilt, embarrassment, and emote feelings of, victory, joy, satisfaction, and persuasiveness? And then you look at confidence, quite simply, the belief that you can do something, the belief that you have in yourself. And of all these 4 different areas, there's different subskills. But when you start looking at mental toughness, that's what mental toughness is comprised of.
Wow. So when you look at these elite athletes on the ones that become the champions, let's say part of a team, your LeBron James, right? These type of athletes, are they groomed to have this type of mental toughness early on? Is that what separates them? Not just the skill and the physical skills that they have, right? I mean, some of these are genetic, some they just, the physical ability is innate, they're able to do it. But a huge part, I would imagine, would be this grooming of this mental toughness in order to compete on these highest levels and stages and be able to perform optimally consistently. Is that something that people can work on, can groom themselves in order to be able to perform at their best? And it doesn't necessarily have to be with athletes, but it can be with anything that you're performing. I love your definition of performance because you're exactly right. It's not just one, word. It's a spectrum. But is it a grooming phenomenon, or is it something I can learn, or now in order to?
Yeah, absolutely. These are different. Again, these, just like with. I love the fact that my beginnings, if you will, were in strength and conditioning, because here we're challenging the body, right? We're putting the body under duress. We're putting the body under training so that when the body super compensates, or when the body starts to grow again, you see the result. And there are so many similarities when you start talking about the mind. So there are different exercises that you can do, different things that you can engage in that are going to help you with your mental toughness, And one of the things that I absolutely love is that once this concept is internalized, even a child can do this stuff. Literally, I was just doing readings for a school in New Mexico and for my daughter's kindergarten class, and they understood the concept. Like, they literally understood the concept, And it's so, to your question, absolutely, there are things that you can do. There are exercises. There are things that you can do to hold yourself accountable as it relates to how how you look at commitment, right? As it relates to how you show control. Just doing simple breathing exercises, right? I think it was Viktor Frankl, Dr. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our ability to choose. And in our choice lies growth and freedom. So many of us are so knee-jerk in our reactions when things go awry that we don't give ourselves the opportunity to exhibit what? Control. So just taking some deep breaths. I did that with the little kids. Like, all right, guys, let's take a deep breath. And they love that. They love that. But it's so simple, but the physiological implications of diaphragmatic breathing are rooted in the literature. We know that as doctors, that when we can get oxygen to the frontal lobe, guess what? We're making better informed decisions. We are making healthy choices. And there is, this is the last thing I'll say, there is beauty in simplicity. So to your question, yes, we can train these elements.
Thank you, Dr. Saya. One last question, Dr. Saya. If there are individuals and students out there, I mean, do you have any recommendations in how particularly Black students can be involved or get involved in the psychology of sports? The path, I mean, we would love to see more of us, because more of us are in sports. So, and I'm sure more of the athletes love to see themselves in us as well as professionals. And that's how we've been able to, work particularly with the athletes we serve. what are your thoughts on how they, students, if you will, can get involved in these in organizations?
Yeah, I love this question. I love this question, and I'm going to start with a story. It's a very short story. Several years ago, one of the things I do is I always ask people, "Hey, what do you want to do? What's your goal? What do you want to do? What's your?" Well, I don't say 3 year, 5 year. I ask them, "What's your dream for your life?" I ask that to everybody. And I was sitting down with my friend, and he is an Asian man, and he was an athletic trainer at the time. This was several years ago. And I said, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And you know what he told me? He said, "I want to be an assistant athletic trainer in the big leagues." I said, "Assistant?" Because usually when you start dreaming, you dream big, right? Like, oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to run the organization. I said, "What do you want to do with your life?" He said, "I want to be an assistant athletic trainer in the big leagues." And so I said, "Why don't you want to be the head guy? Why don't you want to be the director?" And you know what he told me? He said, "Josiah, those jobs aren't for us. Those jobs aren't for my people." And so, and he said this not jokingly. He said this matter of factly, period, full stop. And it really jacked me up because I was just like, man, if you think about it, you start doing the math and you're like, yo, he's actually right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it starts with somebody. It starts with somebody. And it might as well be you. I mentioned Dr. Derek Anderson earlier, and he was the first. And I think I was the second. If somebody else was a second, please let me know. You know what I'm saying? I'll take third place. I don't really care. But it's that's how it starts. And so if you are a young Black professional listening to this, if you are a person of color listening to this, if you are in a minority group listening to this, and you have these gifts, talents, and abilities in you, and you want to make a change, you can make a change right from where you are. Start knocking on doors, start making phone calls, start putting your resume out there, start doing all that stuff. Because all the things that we talked about earlier in terms of trust and how you go about your business, that's what the professional athletes, that's what your clientele, that's what they want. And the fact that you look like them is icing on the cake. So don't wait for permission to start, okay? Don't wait for permission to start. You need to start now. Start asking questions. Connect with people like with Dr. Don. Connect with people like myself. I answer calls every year from young psychology professionals trying to get into the pro sports. And I make time for it because it's important. I may not be able to get to everybody, but I like to make time for it. It starts with you. Dream big. You don't need permission to start. You don't need permission to dream big, because we need more people, more diversity in the marketplace, because it's going to give us a healthier product. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
Dr. Josiah Igono, thank you so much, sir, for coming onto the platform. I have to have you back. I'm sorry. I just got to have you back. Let's go. I mean, I could do a weekly show with you and just not only just have you on the platform, but also learn and be fed, because all the nuggets, all the things you've been through, your journey, I mean, just hearing your story is just inspiring, but it also gives people hope, and people don't have to be involved or even have an interest in what you do. It's all about your journey. It's about your journey. It's about your journey. It's about your journey. People see themselves in others who've had failures, who've had hard trials, who don't necessarily think big, but now think big and get back and tell their story and be genuine in telling their story. And so thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have you back real soon.
Let's go.
Because I don't want to leave you now, but I understand. I'm respect your time. Thank you. Thank you, Josiah. Thank you so much. Is there any last words? I mean, you said the last words were just the sermon itself, but is there anything else? How can people find you? How can they follow you, support you, Let's get that up. We need to make sure that you are followed, you're supported. I know your YouTube and podcast channel, All Things Performance. Would you like to tell us what you feature on your channel?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow. Thank you again, Dr. Don. This has been amazing. The conversation, is going to help people, and I really appreciate what you do and the platform that you're providing, because it's needed, it's necessary. And in terms of how you can find me, yeah, Josiah Igono. My last name is spelled Igono. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, All Things Performance on all channels. We have a podcast that we do featuring, high performers. We just had Dr. Dawn. She did amazing. It was just nugget after nugget. And so, yeah, you can follow us on all those platforms and channels. And in terms of last words, my last words are this. For those of you who are listening to this, I know that each one of you is looking to get better, looking to improve, and you might doubt where you are in terms of professionally, personally. And I just want to tell you just to be encouraged, because your life is necessary. It is inspiring people that you don't even know. And even if it's for that one person that's watching very intently on what you do or do not do, it is worth it. Because the one, you never know who that one is. Let me tell you. And as a man of faith, this is what I will say. There are algorithms, and then there's what God can do. And what God can do is exceedingly abundantly more than any algorithm can measure. And so just be encouraged, because we are in the people business. We need each other. We need to support each other. And if no one has told you today, I'm telling you right now that you are necessary, and we need you at the table. We need you at the table. You know what I'm saying? Thanksgiving dinner. You know what I'm saying? Dinner is always better when everybody brings a little something different, right? So we need you, so we need you at the table. Keep doing what you're doing. Have a tremendous week, and God bless you all. Thank you so much, Dr. Don.
Thank you so much, Dr. Igono. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you. God bless you as well. God bless you as well. Please tell your family thank you as well.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon, okay? I'm having you back on very soon. Everybody, Dr. Josiah Igono, please, you all share this live, share this now, share this, throughout the week. Hopefully this has been a boost, a motivator to your beginning of your week tomorrow, right? This was awesome. This was awesome. Yes, we need each other, Eunice. Yes, we do. Nora says, say it, speak it. He was preaching, preaching, teaching, everything. All the nuggets that we've received this evening. And I know that some are watching this on the replay as well. Thank you so much for watching me, even to this point, because I know what's kept you to this point. Josiah just speaks to your spirit. That's who he is. Every time I speak to him, he just speaks to your spirit. And I know that's part of his purpose as well, as he's so kindly said. So you all, thank you so much. I actually want to share something with you that Dr. Josiah, from his actual podcast, we're going to go out on this as an outro. Please, again, don't forget to share this live. Make sure and also share this now, so you don't forget, because there's a youth person, there's an adult, there's a person in their 50s who still yet has purpose in this life. And it could be different from whatever they did before. Remember, I said purpose does not necessarily have to be one or two things or early on. People have different purposes along the trajectory of their life. And so make sure that you share this, because this message can help everyone develop purpose. And you talk about performance, right? Performance is also a spectrum, right? It's not a simplification. But listen, I'm not going to repeat what he said. These are Josiah's words. You just go ahead and we'll rewatch this again. You have to rewatch it again. But I want to actually leave you again with something that I found incredible that Josiah did. And I look forward, you all, to seeing you back next week with another Live with Dr. Dawn. Thank you so much again for those who are live and sharing with me this evening. I hope you have a blessed Sunday, and that you prepare well for your Monday, okay? And I'm going to share this, and this is found on All Things Performance. It's about mental toughness and what it really is. So please Go ahead and listen and see you next time.
And almost every definition of mental toughness has some type of obstacle, has some type of adversity that's getting in my way of being successful. You can have two of the greatest athletes going head to head, and the thing that's going to determine success 9 times out of 10, a lot of times is psychological. But yet we spend very little time training that way. I love this one right here. This one right here is controversial. I love a little controversy. There's even more research that's saying now that mental toughness is linked to DNA. The very core fiber of who you are in these two constructs right here, which we're going to talk about today, challenge and confidence. Could it be that a 4th generation Maasai warrior from Africa whose family chases lions, them cats is all tough? Could it be that the 4th generation military family, that their children and their children's children are more prone to be mentally tough? When you look at mental toughness, back in the late 1970s, there was a lady by the name of Susan Kabasa. And everybody knows what stress does to an individual. Stress can break you down. But she said, you know what? What happens when stress actually makes you better? What happens when these stressors, these pressures, these challenges actually make you better? And so what she did was she looked at all these senior level executives in businesses, and she said, you know what? There's some of these execs that that are experiencing these high levels of pressure. They're actually producing more. Their work is far better. They're not getting the physiological breakdown that everybody else is getting. And they're just better performers. And you know what she called it? She called it hardiness. And this is where arguably the mental toughness research started, right here. Control. Mentally tough people have great levels of control. Get y'all to think. The next one, challenge. Everybody say challenge. Challenge, baby. Challenge. If you want to be mentally tough, it's going to depend on how you look at challenges. In the world of sports, there is always a risk of losing. There is always a risk of getting hurt. There is always a risk of getting embarrassed. There is always a risk of failing. There's always a risk of being released, traded, sent back home. There's always a risk in pro sports. And people who have high levels of challenge, they see all outcomes as learning experiences and opportunities. Next one, commitment. Everybody say commitment. Whoa. In order to be mentally tough, arguably, you have to have high levels of commitment. The human mind, the human body, naturally, when it sees a finish line, wants to do what? Stop, slow down. If you are mentally tough, you have to exude some noticeable level of confidence. But how are you building these areas when it comes to toughness? Confidence, control, commitment, challenge. How are you building those areas? Where are you weak in? Because if you are to be mentally tough, all of these areas must be addressed. They have to be addressed.